So our number one pick in the silver realm is equivalent to having silver at $220 right now. That is how much better this stock has done than the silver price. The silver price doubled this year, and it's at 66. So think about that. The second thing is, and I love to talk tax. You know I hate it. But the capital gains on silver is far higher than it is on a stock.
You're listening to Kerry Lutz's Financial Survival Network, where you get valuable information you just can't find anywhere else. To thrive in today's trying times, you need the Financial Survival Network, now more than ever. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and get your free newsletter and gift. Financial Survival Network, now more than ever.
And welcome. You are listening to and watching the Financial Survival Network. I'm your host, Kerry Lutz. Our good friend David Morgan, a.k.a. Silver Guru, is with us now. And David, I notice a lot of empty champagne bottles around your office there. Does that have anything to do with $65 silver? 66?
It doesn't hurt, Kerry. It doesn't hurt at all. But I'm on record, and I think you know this, but I said years ago, if silver ever hits 100, I will throw a party it'll be RSVP. It'll be for people that have been members of the Morgan Report, first and foremost. And then if we don't fill up, the event, then it'll go to expireds. And then if that doesn't fill up the event, it'll go to my free list. And if that doesn't fill up the event, it'll be open. I'm joking, but it will be. I'm actually working on it ahead of time. I have to plan.
Yeah.
And I was going to do it here in town. And I thought, Spokane is just not the place. So I got a event coordinator that I've used in the past. And I think Vegas, because people like to go to Vegas. And, if it's a one-night deal, which is what I'm planning, come in maybe on a Friday and we have our party. And then you got the rest of the weekend to see a show or go out to eat or whatever. So
I love it.
Planning is in place, and there'll be a lot of champagne at that event.
Well, I am going to make an offer to all of you out there listening that the top 5 of you that get closest to the date that silver hits 100, I will pay for your trips to Vegas from wherever you are in the United States. I'm not paying for you to come from China or wherever, but if you're in the U.S., I'll pay for your flight to Vegas, and I'll give you a couple bucks towards the hotel, and we're gonna party like it's 1999. But David, like seriously, there's I wrote an article yesterday that basically what the banks are doing to try to the raids on silver are the equivalent of what was happening at the end of World War I when the German artillery had basically worn out and they were still firing shells, and they would go short and they'd basically kill their own troops. And, basically, though, they had to keep doing it because that was the system in place. These raids that they do, and you could call me a conspiracy theorist, I'm fine with that, but these raids, each one gets less effective. Have you noticed that?
Oh, yeah. There's a guy on Twitter. I think I retweeted it, and I'll give the right ID. I can't quote him exactly, but it used to hit us, and it would take weeks to recover. Then it started hitting us, and it would take a week to recover. Now they're hitting us, and it takes a day or more recently, it's taken a day or two to recover. Now they hit us, it takes an hour to recover. Guess who's winning?
Yeah.
That's about right.
It's amazing to see it. I mean, they're doing it now. They knocked roughly $1.50 off of it, but it's going to get to the point where they actually do it, and it's going to raise the price. That's my point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, it's very, very strong, as you know, and as you just said, the paper side is losing power, and that's what, I've said it, Butler said it, Craig Emke, I mean, there's so many of us, and it's taken longer than I expected it to carry, but I said there'd be a day when a physical market takes over the paper paradigm. And we've seen it on the retail side a few times, but it's lasted a few days, even during the silver squeeze. It lasted for a while, and that was mostly retail. And then remember, Rostam Benham came out and said we got to tamp down the silver market. Remember that one?
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, we were in the 30s. But this time it's different because, first of all, the price. Secondly, the duration. It just keeps on chugging along, and they slam it, and it comes right back up. It's a whack-a-mole. They hit it down. They're used to, oh, that's the end of that for a while. No, it popped right back up. So it's very interesting times and very satisfying to see the physical market take dominion over the paper pushers.
And like you can see when they're doing it because they'll go hammer the stocks, and then then they'll hammer the silver. But I've seen it where they hammer the stocks and silver goes up anyway. And then when you watch it in the after hours, the access market in Asia and in Europe, it goes up there. And then the tell to me was the day after Thanksgiving, which is normally the day they slam it. And, that we had a $2.30 gain, maybe $3 the day after Thanksgiving. And I'm waiting to see what happens the day after Christmas.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it's really very interesting. And, in the access market, it used to always be their playground where there's very, very few trades and they could really gain momentum by slamming her down. And then what would happen, of course, that carry over in the opens on the other markets. And then there'd be, big down. So then the margin calls would go out, which would cause further downward pressure. But over the last, I'd have to look, but probably 6 months, I'm guessing, but in that range.
Yeah.
The access markets had all this strength and they slam it and it goes right back up, as I just said. And they are not used to it. They meaning primarily the paper paradigm, but that's primarily the 4 to 8 banks that Ed Steer talks about continuously that are bullion banks that get an advantage. A lot of people don't know how the futures market works, not only from the mechanics of it and what the contracts say, but from the idea that when you're a hedger, you get a 30% discount from the brokerage, from the CME. Because if you're hedging wheat and you're a farmer, then, since that's your product, Mr. Farmer will give you a discount because you're growing the wheat. And why should you have to, take all of your capital to hedge a position where you're going to deliver? Well, that's true of silver, except none of these silver producers hedge. Very few. I shouldn't say none. None of my list hedge.
They stopped now. They stopped.
It's the banks, the bullion banks. Like they need a 30% discount when they could print infinite currency. It's ridiculous. But that's the rules, and that's what they have.
Totally. Yeah. Well, supposedly J.P. Morgan switched sides, and they're on the long side now. And they've been building up their silver inventory. And that in itself is enough to upend the market, isn't it?
It is. And that's something, going back into, I'll call it the good old days. And I wouldn't say an argument, but I had a discussion with Ted Butler very early on. And, he was telling me, all the stuff and, big credit to Ted Butler. But I was bringing forth the idea that, we don't really know the net because they could be short, in New York, but they could be long the LBMA. And that's really okay. We don't really know the true position.
No.
He agreed with me, but not, I was indicating maybe they're net long and I don't know, but
we don't know.
Yeah. But that's the idea, especially you look at, Eric Young has become very popular in the silver world the last several months. And I interviewed him once. I plan to do it again. But he talks about this kind of back and forth between the LBMA and the COMEX. And I've done the same thing. I mean, in my earlier interviews, as you recall, because we know each other for years, I used to always refer to the axis as the Anglo-American Empire. Yes, the London boys and the New York boys working together to, we can't say manipulate.
to influence. We could say influenced. Exercise undue influence over the market. I think that's a fair assessment, don't you?
I do indeed.
Yeah. Well, but yeah, that's the thing. You don't really know their book. And Martin Armstrong said this a number of times. Like, that's how they made their money, because they'd be selling it here and buying it in London and then, making the spread there, basically arbitraging and risk-free arbitrage, because they know exactly what's going to happen to the market once they start selling those contracts. But those days are gone, so it appears, at least for the time being. And once they lose control, it's very hard to take control of a market again. And then, not to mention, David, you've mentioned this so many times over the years, that the criticality of silver and the Trump administration acknowledging that silver is a critical mineral.
Oh, exactly. And that's, an unknown as far as how much silver will the federal government buy for the strategic stockpile. I mean, the Silver Eagle program was based upon the strategic stockpile that was sitting there, and some senator decided, well, what are we going to do with this stuff? Why don't we just, make a law and make the Treasury mint these things into 1 ounce coins, call them Silver Eagles, and sell them to the public and deplete the stockpile. What's funny about that, Kerry, is when that happened, they ate up the 139 million ounces fairly quickly. But in the original law, you had to source domestic produced silver to continue the Silver Eagle program.
Right.
Well, once they ran out of metal, they figured out the sourcing from the US of A was so pitifully small, they couldn't even get enough Eagles produced. So they had to change the law to source silver from anywhere they could get it to continue the Silver Eagle program.
Yeah. I quote you like so many times, David, like you're the one who first called it, that I remember, a Johnson slug. And I wrote an article. Because, we're talking about 60 years of silver suppression. Actually, it's much longer than that, but in the modern era. And 65 was the key because that's when the price of silver was exceeding the face value of the coins. And the government knew this, and Johnson basically demonetized the coinage. And there was a big stink about it. I didn't even know. I wrote the article. I got an email from a guy who said his father was Frank Church, Senator Frank Church, and he totally vehemently opposed taking silver out of the coinage. And he was a famous senator. He challenged the intelligence community through the Church Committee. He was a straight shooter, and there were 11 senators. So I said, we just talk about this, but I never really researched how it went down. I was only 8 years old. You got a couple of years on me, but you weren't that old either. And
11.
It was a psyop. Basically, LBJ said silver is too valuable to use as small change. That was his rationale.
Yeah.
And what was interesting, Kennedy was killed, so they made the Kennedy $50 in 1964. It was 90% silver, and instantly it disappeared from circulation because people basically, as a collector kind of remnant type thing, curio. And then they said, well, we can't make a $50 out of just copper clad, a Johnson slug, because that'll cheapen the memory of Kennedy. So the least amount of silver they could put in that coin, David, was 40% to still make it sound like a silver coin when you dropped it and make it look like a silver coin. And that's why we got 40% $50 from 65 to 70. And then even those got hoarded, snapped up, and out of circulation. So finally they just gave up in 71, I guess, and only for special, mint sets. I've been buying mint proofs for their metal value, David. It's amazing, like proof sets, 90% silver proof sets for metal value. It's unbelievable, this market.
It is crazy. I had, well, you know this, but there's a couple of interesting outfits. I'll put it in that context. And what they do is they buy mint boxes from the Treasury every year and do these huge advertising campaigns that you can buy a proof MS-70 or 2026 Silver Eagle for $70. Well, now 66, so for $120. And so people buy those. And then what they find out is when they go to resell them, they basically sell for, for silver's value. So if it's $66, they paid $120. A year later, they go, so for $70, they might get 72. Anyway, the point I'm making, so I called the wholesalers. I said, how many slabbed 70, proof, have you got? He goes, oh, I got a big number. I said, well, I don't need that many. So send me, 2 boxes, which are 20 in each. They're all slabbed. You know what they look like.
Right. Yeah, sure.
And what did I pay for those darn? I paid pretty much the same as you'd pay for any silver coin.
Yeah.
I mean, there's an example right there. I think you see all my height, but anyway, it's a slab silver coin.
Sure.
And then I would give them out for new subscribers at the gold shows, like where I met you,
Right.
Sign up for the Morgan Port here at the show and have a slab 70 proof, silver eagle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Unbelievable. That even the silver in these proof sets, it's always worth something, but that the melt value is greater than the collectible value now. I mean, I bought all the quarter sets. I bought a few of them.
Okay.
The 50 states quarters. And
Sure do.
I bought them like 4 weeks ago. And basically at melt value plus the face value of the non-silver coins, I got them for less than that. So you can't go wrong as a discount. And now they're worth, God only knows, but, everybody could buy them. But so if you're late to the show for silver, what's the first thing you would do, David, if you were in that position? If you just figured out one day that silver is really going to be money again, and it's something you should be buying, and you don't have a lot of money, how do you get into it?
Well, I just wrote an article and got posted on the web somewhere. And I just said, really, if you're going to start where I've always recommended, Kerry, and that's with a bag or half bag or quarter bag of what's called junk. I prefer to call it constitutional silver because it's selling at a discount. I know some of your more retail type places are selling it for melt, but you can get it for $2 or $3 under spot or under melt if you know where to go. And of course, that's I'm not going to say any names on any public domain, but if you find me on X, send me a DM, a direct message, and say, hey, you're interested in buying, constitutional below spot, and I'll connect you with the people that I know that are close to wholesale. And so that's a good place to start. Plus, it's worst case scenario, chances of us having to barter are probably very small.
No.
But that doesn't mean you still couldn't use it in a transaction, give it out as tips. I think there'll be more and more use for silver as money as time wears on, even if it's inefficient. For example, the Morgan Report. If you want to pay me in silver, I'll give you a 20% discount.
Sure. Yeah. Well,
so if you want to pay me in fiat, pay me $500. But if you're going to pay me in silver, I'll take 400 silver equivalent.
I think for large items, people will start, I think people will be buying houses for silver. In fact, I was thinking of starting a new business, David, cash for silver instead of cash for gold, right?
Sure. Yeah.
A new South Park episode.
There we go.
So, well, hey, it's nice to be right once in a while. And so Morgan Report still going strong. How do you subscribe to it?
Yeah, just go to themorganreport.com, sign up for our free. That doesn't cost you anything. And then if you're interested in the investment opportunities that we have, then certainly look at the subscription service. And That's why I throw this out there. I don't want to name any names. I'm too professional, but there's been a lot of chatter from time to time about, you just want gold and silver only. You don't want the stocks. And on aggregate, that's true. I mean, if you buy a gold mutual fund, you're probably going to do as well or better or slightly better than or slightly less than gold itself. But if you buy the right stocks, there's no question how much better you can do. Give you 2 examples. Number one, my favorite, and I weight the portfolio. So big money goes into these things, not, speculative. This is serious investing. So our number one pick in the silver realm is equivalent to having silver at $220 right now. That is how much better this stock has done than the silver price. The silver price doubled this year, and it's at 66. So think about that. The second thing is, and I love to talk tax. I hate it. But the capital gains on silver is far higher than it is on a stock. So not only have you gone up, 66 down to 70, it's 300%, 3 times greater in value or in dollars or in fiat. So 220, and your tax rate is a lot less. So your net is far superior owning that silver company than it is owning silver. Now, I advocate both. I'm not selling my book because I mostly work on the equity side, sometimes the futures and options side, ETFs. But that's number one. Number two is, if you bought Pan American when I bought it, you know what my dividend is? Well, if you look at the stock exchange, it's going to say like 2%. But if you take my dividend and I'm getting when I bought it at $250, I'm getting over 10% on my silver investment every year. Why? Because it was an investment. It's a buy and hold, and that stock's up well over 10 times. But anyway, but there's a point to be, want to be fair. If you buy a gold mutual fund, you're probably going to do just almost as well buying gold. But if you buy the right stocks, you can beat the crap out of the metal. Now, again, you should have both. And I've told everyone before you subscribe to the Morgan Report, the paid version, you should own physical gold and silver. But once that is accomplished, if you want to leverage your position with the least risk, there's risk in all stocks. We know that. But the least risk, cash-rich, unhedged mining companies, and most of those are royalty companies that we specialize in. And I'm just shooting straight, So had you bought early, you'd be getting big dividends. Taxes are much less than on the metal itself. And so there are advantages to having both.
Absolutely. For sure. Couldn't agree with you more. And that's how I'm aligned as well. And, I don't think the Western civilization is disappearing yet, but it's certainly taken a hit or two. So it's themorganreport.com. If you got any questions for David and myself, shoot me an email, kl@kerrylutz.com. You can find me financialsurvivalnetwork.com, kerrylutz.com. David, great to talk to you. I'm looking forward to the party, and we will talk to you again soon.
Looking forward to seeing you in person. Thank you, Kerry.
Thanks for listening to Kerry Lutz's Financial Survival Network, your solution to today's trying times. For the latest, go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com. Financial Survival Network, now more than ever.